club finished first and third in the league. Very nice.
Wow, that's great.
How are we doing, Courtney? All right, let's kick it off. So welcome everybody to another fun-filled Zoom call. So we've been trying through the course of the pandemic, we've been trying to use this as an opportunity to have our members be able to have an interaction, ask questions to various elected officials. And previously, we've had two great calls with Supervisor Gaspar, Mayor Faulkner. Today we have Councilmember Cate from the City of San Diego, and a lot of, I think, exciting things happening in Councilmember Cate's district, which I'm hoping he'll touch on today. And also, with the pending election and the way current polling's going, it's likely that the real estate community is going to look to Councilmember Cate to help keep the new council focused on ordinances and legislation that protect our business interests. Obviously, with the pandemic, there's a lot of legislation that has been coming from the state and reflected at the council level, whether that's rent moratoriums or eviction moratoriums, that are all heavy, I think, on the council right now. So lots to talk about. Very excited to have Councilmember Cate here. And I might add, if anybody has any questions, use your chat feature. And then Craig is going to moderate a Q&A session once Councilmember Cate finishes. So with that, Councilmember Cate, very happy to have you here today. And I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Todd, and thank you everyone for having me here, and excited to kind of fill you in on some of the things, at least that I've been working on, and things that are going on at the city, both in District 6 and throughout the city of San Diego. Some things we're working on, and very much happy to get into some Q&A and have a dialogue about what's going on and hear some of your guys' thoughts and concerns. I'm going to touch on just 3 points during kind of my presentation, and then open up for Q&A. The first one being that something exciting happening in District 6 is the update to the Kearny Mesa Community Plan. It's something that we pushed for about 4 years now, got the funding to get started on it, and now working through its way and working through its process. We're really excited about where we're at, having gone to Planning Commission and hopefully coming to Council here in the next few months. But it's something, when I came on the Council, there was a lot of opportunity to set a really intriguing vision for the Kearny Mesa community and that neighborhood, whether it be the Convoy Street corridor or the eastern part of Kearny Mesa, with the amount of jobs and potential that could be there, as well as introducing more residential units into the mix in the Kearny Mesa community. And I think city staff has done a fabulous job of working with the community to hear input and feedback from the folks who are there every single day, and really have done a great job of setting that vision for what could happen over the next 10, 20, 30 years in Kearny Mesa. Just being a job center, having residential units close to the amount of jobs that we can put in there, increasing the amount of density for the number of units, and the mix of property owners and the amount of jobs that can be introduced to that community, I think really sets an exciting vision. And anytime I go out and talk about Kearny Mesa and let people know that in the near term, you can actually have housing right on Convoy, I think people get really, really excited about that. And so I know there are a lot of folks who are ready to hit the ground running as soon as we as a council adopt that community plan, and really set the stage for the vision in the next 5 years even. That's something that's hopefully, I'm part of the council where we can see some things come to fruition in the next few years while I'm still there. But this has been a priority of mine since I came on back in 2014 to get this plan updated. And I'm happy to say we're near the finish line, and look forward to having you all be a part of the council meeting and advocating for its passage. But I don't see any roadblocks for passage. I think it's gotten a lot of positive feedback everywhere it's gone. And so we're hopeful to keep moving forward in the right direction on that front. The next thing I want to talk about real quickly is the Midway. We're really excited about the ballot measure. It's going to be Measure E on the ballot in November. So encourage everybody to vote yes on Measure E, and tell your friends if you live in the city of San Diego and you're a San Diego voter to vote yes on Measure E. This is something that at least I've been thinking about for a couple of years now, and got a partner who was willing to go to bats for this, in Councilmember Jen Campbell, who's been a great partner and advocate in this to raise the height limit in the Midway district when we adopted the community plan back in 2018. And what we've heard since then is that there is no way we were going to be able to achieve the vision that was set forward in that plan without raising the height limits in the Midway. We worked its way from idea and a memo standpoint from Councilmember Campbell and myself to get it through to council, and the council eventually placing the measure on the ballot in have them part of the campaign moving forward, because that will be obviously a huge subset of the Midway district and the campaign, because people are going to ask about that. So if a decision is made sooner rather than later, great. We'll welcome whomever is selected with open arms in the campaign, but we're not letting that slow down our campaign to get our message out to voters. With ballots going to be dropping here in the near term, we're hopeful to get an idea of what our messaging, what best messages work with voters, and then work to get that message out to voters come November. So that's where we're at with the campaign, and happy to have a more discussion about that as well too. And then the last thing, very quickly, we've been very proactive as an office during this pandemic to try to do what we can to help our small businesses, both in District 6 and throughout the city of San Diego. We've tried to be out there with ideas, creative solutions, and ideas of how to get through all of this, whether it be from the business standpoint or even from the educational aspect of it. And we put forward some ideas about a month ago about what we think we should be doing, or the school district should be doing, to allow parents and employees who have school-age children to be able to do so in a manner that's both safe and allow them to go back to work. And we've got a lot of positive feedback on all of this, whether it be outdoor dining, opening up our parks to fitness trainers and churches, you name it. We're doing what we can with ideas, and we're just searching for creative solutions that have been used in other cities across the country and what can be unique here to San Diego. So if anybody has feedback or ideas on what we can do, we're very much open to that, because we're definitely of the mindset that we need to get San Diego's economy back and rolling. I chair our city's economic development committee, and we're always searching for ideas, what we can do. On September 9th, which is our first meeting back from legislative recess, we're going to be focused on the tourism industry. So we'll have presentations from the Tourism Authority, the TMD, Rip Ripito, who oversees our convention center, and Joe Panetta from Biocom to give a discussion about kind of where we're at given the circumstances that we're in, and us as a city that's very much reliant on TOT revenue being our third largest source of revenue. If conventions and hotel space can't get up and running, that has a huge burden on our economy, but also us as a city to be able to have the finances to provide basic city services that we need to provide to our residents and our constituents. So that's going to be our focus at our September 9th meeting. I will say, I got to give one kind of a plug for an industry that we've been very much supportive of since we've been in office, and that's our craft brewing industry. Our breweries have been hit extremely hard. 70% of breweries' revenue comes from taps. And so if bars and restaurants aren't open to allow for alcohol and whatnot, that has a huge financial burden on our brewery. So if you are a beer fan like myself and enjoy your local brewery and you want to do what you can to save them, I encourage you to go to sdbeer.com. We started a fund, myself and Supervisor Jim Desmond, started just a fund with a $10,000 goal to allow revenue to be generated to our Brewers Guild here in San Diego, and then they can distribute funds to local breweries when they're in need. That's whether that's paying a water bill or whatever they can do to help breweries get through all of this. they're going to be supportive of that. So encourage you. You know, I know everyone's being asked to donate for something, but if you're a beer fan and you want to support local breweries, I encourage you to go to sdbeer.com and provide for a contribution to the Brewers Guild. So with that, Todd, Craig, I'm open to have a bunch of Q&A. I could go into more depth on anything that anybody likes with thoughts or ideas, but I'll leave it there for now.
All right, well, let's roll a little bit. So one of the questions that came in on the chat line was, what is the main opposition to Proposition E? Maybe you could get into a little more detail on that.
Yeah, so Measure E opponents are Raise a Balloon, Save San Diego Neighborhoods, a lot of folks who have been in pretty much opposition to increasing the amount of housing supply and stock in San Diego. They've come down and testified against various projects or land use decisions that have come to council, with the onus being they don't want to see more housing, more traffic, congestion. Those are kind of the arguments. The biggest thing that we had issues with the ballot arguments is that they made the contention that Midway is a beach community, which absolutely is not. There's no coastal access. There is no coastal views from the Midway. They made the insinuation that we're privatizing public land with this ballot measure, that we need to save MCRD from development because this will allow for development of MCRD, which is not true. So we had a lot of contentions with elements of the ballot arguments, and felt that that is not right. That's not truthful. We shouldn't be allowing that to go before voters.
Chris,
Yeah.
So the height restrictions codified in the LCP as well, is it not? So
Correct.
concern about, getting through the referendum and that being appealed to the Coastal Commission?
We're not too concerned with that, although it's an element that we have to deal with. We're not, we're hopeful given the arguments that we've laid forth, and that Midway was somewhat arbitrarily included in this ballot measure years back. Again, there's no real coastal access issues. There's no view corridors in the Midway. I think that message is going to resonate with folks. So we're not too concerned with that. One thing I didn't mention in my presentation on Midway real quick is that a lot of folks ask, well, what's the new height limit going to be in Midway? What's going to happen with this? And we're just removing the overlay zone for the Midway. The height limits essentially will revert back to the base zones that were adopted in the community plan update. So it'll vary from parcel to parcel based on what the zoning is for that individual parcel. So it's hard to say, like, it's going to be 100 feet or 75 feet. It's going to be based off that individual parcel. So I'd refer you to your to the community plan update and to see what the zoning is for those individual parcels.
And that's generally supported by coastal staff?
We've heard good things. So I'll leave it at that. I have not had any personal discussions with coastal staff, but we've heard positive feedback.
So do you have any thoughts, Councilman, on your vision for Midway? I know it's in Councilmember Campbell's district, but obviously some important things there. I know you touched on the RFPs for the sports arena site that the city owns, but do you have any thoughts about that and maybe tie it into the discussions with Sandag on the use of the old Spaywar property?
Yeah, I think that whomever is selected to enter into an ENA with the city will have to have discussions with Sandag, Navar, the airports. All those folks are going to have to come together to have an overall vision. I will say, I love the renderings of what could be potential there, but I'm cautious in saying that will not be the final product because so much discussion has to be underway with those other properties to make everything congruent and contiguous along that corridor. But I think the vision that we laid out in the community plan update should suffice. I mean, that's what that vision is. We want mixed use. We want to introduce more housing into that area. We want to introduce more jobs in that area. I love the Midway because of the character. I mean, it is kind of like Kearny Mesa in a sense that it's very eclectic in the types of businesses that are there. But we want to turn it into an actual neighborhood, more green space, more park space, more opportunities to live and work in the same communities, similar to what we want to do in Kearny Mesa. So in that respect, I think the vision outline that we've outlined is a good one. It's just we have this barrier that exists to allow for investment in that community that we don't have in other communities that are not west of Interstate 5. And again, I think it was arbitrary for Midway to be included in that ballot measure. And the one in all this is that these ideas have come from the community. I mean, the support from this has come from the people who live and work in the Midway. They understand this is a barrier, that we want to remove the barrier. This is the right time to do it, with so much that's happening in that neighborhood, that we need to take advantage of the opportunity that's given to us and put this measure on the ballot and pass it.
So since we're on the subject of initiatives, do you have any thoughts on the one of the other big initiatives on the city ballot for the housing bond?
I'm an opponent. I signed the ballot argument in opposition to it, along with Councilmember Sherman. So you'll see that in your ballot arguments. I said this when this first came to council for the, I think the necessity ordinance portion of it. You know, I just have a fundamental disagreement that in order to increase the supply of subsidized affordable housing, that we have to increase the cost of living for our residents and our businesses in San Diego. I don't see those two things as mixing together. You know, I don't think it's a binary choice. And so looking at ways to reduce the cost of subsidized housing should be, I think, our first priority. Not trying to pass on increased costs to property owners in the city of San Diego, especially now, you know. And I think it all sounds well and good that you want to increase the amount of funding for subsidized housing, but then you go and turn around and talk to a homeowner or a property owner or a tenant, even, you know, if you're in a triple net lease, you know, would you want to see the cost of doing business increase to do this? Well, you know, let's have a different discussion about that. So, you know, when we talk about all the polling that's been done that shows that this is a slam dunk, I mean, that argument has been introduced to folks in those polls. You know, this is a tax that will be a tax for decades, you know, 4 or 5 decades, you're gonna have to be paying for this. And to be quite honest, the history of these types of bonds it's not a good one. You look at LA, it took 3 years for them to actually just finish their first project. I think it was 66 units. And they've spent millions of dollars over the past 3 years since passage of their bond measure, and they've now have 66 units to show for it. So, you know, I just think it's the wrong thing to do right now, especially given these circumstances and the times that we're in. We're doing everything we can to try to reduce the cost of living in San Diego because of the impact people are feeling. This is the wrong question to be asking voters.
So my guess is, even though it's a statewide initiative, that along that same theme, you wouldn't be supportive of Prop 15, the split roll property tax.
Absolutely not. I've been opposed to that since I was at the Taxpayers Association years ago when they tried this originally. I mean, I don't get it, but that's just me.
So since we're on the subject of elections, any thoughts about the mayor's race or about your future 5 council colleagues?
Well, on the council side, I mean, I'm supporting Joe Leventhal and Noli Zosa. You know, both are business owners. They get it. They're smart. They're dynamic. They understand the nuances of kind of the business world, which I think you need on that dais, especially the type of decisions that we're making. So I think they'd be a great fit. I mean, so right now, you know, Scott sits to my left and Mark sits to my right, and Scott's not to left of me on anything. So it's just to have them there. But, you know, having them next to me has been great for my time on council, and would want to have, you know, Joe and Nolan in the same boat. But I'm also a realist and understanding where we are as a city and the messages that are resonating with folks. It's going to be a tough challenge. Neither of those seats will be an easy one. You know, I'm spending as much time as I can in what Joe and Nolan ask of me to support them in their efforts, because it's extremely important. And I don't want to be alone on the council, to be quite honest with you. So hopefully Nolan and Joe can make it through in November. On the mayor's race, you know, I haven't endorsed anybody. I've known Todd a long time. I'll say this: he's someone who I can trust. I don't agree with him on a lot of things, which is okay. But what I look for out of somebody, a colleague, especially of someone who's going to be the mayor, who I want to work with, is somebody who, I can trust in what they say they'll do, and is honest with me about their feelings and thoughts on issues, and I can work with that. So, it's going to be another hard-fought race as well too. And if it's Councilmember Bree who wins, I've worked with her as well too. Haven't known her as long as I've known Todd. We'll try to work with her and hopefully get some things that are more pro-business in nature that are adopted.
Well, we've got a couple of questions about community plan updates, so maybe we can start in Kearney Mesa and talk about that. I know that there's been some discussion about, what's the timing of it? Will it get there for this council? Can we get it adopted? Obviously, part of that, I've talked about this, is complete communities and how that ties in and the timing of that. Maybe you could touch on Kearney Mesa.
Sure. In terms of timing, we went to Planning Commission a week ago, 2 weeks ago now, losing track of time. I've been told that it will be on the docket for Land Use Committee in September. And then after that, they're just trying to find a docket date for council. I am extremely hopeful that it is docketed at council before the end of the year. The mayor knows full well that this is a top priority for me. I would imagine he wants to be in office to see this done as well too, given that he was instrumental in getting us the funding to initially invest in this community plan update. So although I haven't been told of a set docket date at council, I would be shocked if it's not done prior to his leaving office. And as we know more, I'll definitely keep folks in the loop. In terms of the complete communities aspect of it, the one thing we were told is that not the entire complete communities, but the park master plan portion of it, they're hopeful that that is adopted prior to the Kearney Mesa community plan update being adopted, because the way the Kearney Mesa community plan update is written assumes adoption of the parks master plan. I don't see it as that being the case. You need to do one first versus the other. I think Kearney Mesa can go first. The parks master plan at some point in time will be adopted. In what form or function can be debated. And I've been a part of that debate and letting people know, mayor staff know that I have concerns about not the goals and the vision set in the master plan, but on how parks are funded, and leaving that to the council to determine where those funds will be distributed into what parks. That makes that process extremely political. And if you look at parks in the areas, especially in my district, like Hickman Field in Kearney Mesa as an example, the folks at Hickman have been really excited about the plan update because they see this as an opportunity to pay for their park improvements that have been stalled for years. And that facility, with no running bathroom in that facility, needs a lot of TLC. To be told that, well, the amount of money that we thought was going to come in based on development in Kearney Mesa may not go to Hickman, I think will leave a sour taste in their mouths and other mouths of folks who are park advocates in other areas through the city, because the process to give money to park improvement projects can get extremely political, and I wouldn't want to leave that to chance. So that's been my issue with the park master plan and where we're at. But I think the goals and the vision on equity is a good one, and something that we need to adopt as a city.
In Kearney Mesa, I know that you gave a really good insight on the timing of everything, but maybe you could give a quick hitter on the vision, and in particular the Convoy district. I know it's a near and dear thing to your heart. Yeah,
so Convoy is introducing residential on the north side of Convoy, and having that become more mixed use, similar to what we see in Little Italy. The southern portion of Convoy is something that we have the airport, Montgomery Gibbs, so we can't introduce residential into the southern portion of Convoy, but allowing for more, somewhat more density along the corridor of that street is something that we're really excited about. Having more opportunities for walkability along Convoy as well too, something we're excited about. Having the kind of park outlets along that area as well too. I think we're waiting for, I think, one big anchor development to occur to kind of spur the rest of the growth in that corridor. We need that kind of that instigator of a project, and hopefully we're able to get that to allow for that type of development to occur. And then just along the Claremont Mesa Boulevard corridor as well too, I think you see a lot of opportunity for residential in that area as well too. And with the Midcoast coming in as well too, one thing we've been talking to MTS about is making sure that we have enough stops and a lot of spurs off Midcoast to go into Kearny Mesa as an employment center. So we want to make sure that Midcoast taken advantage of with Balboa and Claremont Mesa Boulevard as well too.
Do you have, since we're on the subject of transportation, and I know Sandag, recently their board got a preview or overview of the new transportation plan that Hassan has put together. Do you have any thoughts about that, and maybe a little bit more specifics on, extending up into Kearny Mesa?
I will say I have not been briefed and have not read the new draft RTP, so I apologize. I can't really comment on it, but I'm sure I will be informed on that and how to pay for it sometime soon.
Any thoughts on charging people to drive on freeway lanes?
No. How about that?
That's a good one. So on the other community plan updates, since you're not officially termed out until the next election cycle, I guess, so you'll be there for potentially one or more beyond just Kearny Mesa. What are your thoughts about like Claremont or Mira Mesa?
Yeah,
and direction they're going.
Yeah, so hopefully, so the two other community plan updates. Claremont is farther along than Mira Mesa, so I hope that Claremont gets done. Hopefully in 2021. I think that's the goal right now. Either late 2021 or early 2022 is the goal for Claremont, and then Mira Mesa will be soon following that. Mira Mesa, we just introduced the online portal for Mira Mesa, and I apologize, I should have remembered the website for that, but there's an online survey now for Mira Mesa. I'm really excited about Mira Mesa, kind of for the same reason as Kearny Mesa. There's a lot of opportunity that does exist. We have two big projects that are coming into Kearny Mesa, or excuse me, Mira Mesa, where the old rock quarries are, where the Vulcan and Stone Creek site are at. That's one site. That's about 5,000 units, mixed use project. And then next door to that is Three Roots, which is 1,800 units mixed use as well too. So nearly 7,000 units being proposed in Mira Mesa. And then we have the whole Serrano Valley, Serrano Mesa corridor. And how do we allow for more opportunities in that area, especially from a residential standpoint, with the amount of jobs that we have in that part of Mira Mesa. And then lastly, Miramar is a huge opportunity that exists, and a lot of projects in Miramar are starting to come together, be a part of setting the vision for Miramar and what can become. There's a lot of industrial overlay zone that people are a little bit concerned about for the future of growth on the eastern side of Miramar Road, and balancing that with MCS Miramar there as well too. But is there an opportunity to allow for more growth along Miramar Road for different types of businesses in that area? So it's a lot of exciting stuff. And my hope, and I've told this to planning staff, is to have all three of these things be adopted before I leave office, because we worked really, really hard with staff to get the funding for these projects. And we did have some budget issues this year, but we were told that that will not impact either Mira Mesa or Claremont in the plan update. So we're taking that to heart, that we're going to continue on path with the funding that we have, and we can get things done.
So I put in the chat, everybody, the link for the Mira Mesa online portal. It's planmiramesa.org.
Plan, easy enough to remember that.
All right, I'm here to help, Councilman. So with regard to like height limitations, we talked about Midway. What about the other plans like Claremont and elsewhere? I mean, Complete Communities touches on some of that, and some new state laws touch on some of that. What are your thoughts?
I think in Claremont, you won't see that in there. On the eastern side of Claremont, I mean, I'm not sure kind of the rationale for it being included previously, but we have a history now and a record of introducing projects that are above that height limit. We just approved a 404 unit development project on Mount Etna of the old Sheriff's Crime Lab, which is a county property affordable housing project that will go higher than the 30-foot height limit. So I think there is going to be a vision for that. I think a lot of the concern that we are seeing in Claremont, and we're going to see it in Mira Mesa as well too, is these old strip malls, these shopping centers, and what you do with them, and what the vision for those shopping centers are over the future. And people are really emotional about it. When we talked about this in Mira Mesa, when some ideas came forward, I mean, people were thinking that, oh my gosh, Target's going to be closed and we're going to redo this tomorrow. And that's not the case. But I think allowing for that vision to occur and educating people that this is not going to happen overnight. This is a process, but we want to start setting the stage now because we don't know what these malls will look like in 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, no one thought that Amazon would be what it is 20 years ago now, right? And so, what's the future of these strip malls, and these vast parking lots that go unused? How do we capitalize on that, given the circumstance that we're in as a city and a state now with the housing crisis that we're in? So, I think that part of the education will help alleviate any concerns people have maybe about density or height or whatever else, and understanding that Claremont, again, is not a beach community. I mean, I love Claremont. I lived in Claremont when I went to school, but Balboa and Genesee, like, you really don't have view corridors that you need to be too much concerned about.
So jumping to COVID a little bit, rent repayment, eviction moratoriums. We'd heard that September 9th, the council president potentially was bringing back the second reading of her rent repayment ordinance. Do you have any thoughts on where that's all going?
I know Councilmember Campbell was the one going to negotiate this or set a motion for the end of December. I think the message that we've been trying to communicate to folks is that this isn't an issue and a concern if you allow people to get back to work. And I think we're trying to introduce that in a safe manner. Us being ahead of the state or other jurisdictions, even the county, I don't think makes any sense. We're in election cycle now, and it's kind of the crazy times, and things don't make much sense. So my hope is that we're able to get past this, and people will see the light. If it does go to December, I don't want to see something come in, September or October says that we're going to send this for all of 2021 or what have you. I mean, I think it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But it's about education and letting people know how this works, how the business community works, how even standpoint how that works for tenants. I don't think people understand that. And right now, I think if you talk to property owners, I mean, no one wants to have an open lease right now. I mean, people want to work with tenants to figure something out, but there's always something to do moving forward. Like, if you give help to a business, how do you help the property owner? If you help the property owner, then the banks are going to have an issue. So it's not as if we can do something. And when we initially started out this, we made a promise that we were going to try to help property owners, and that never came to fruition. I mean, the city hasn't done anything to that manner, even though the council president and the majority of the council members who initially supported this from the outset said that we were going to look at that, and unfortunately, nothing's ever come. Nothing's ever been proposed.
Do you people have talked a lot about the impact of schools, whether they're open, whether they're closed, and getting businesses reopen, and with people that have two-income families, what they do if they have school-age kids and it's homeschooled. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we said that when we released our proposal a month ago. This is a huge issue. And I saw a story today out of New York where Mayor de Blasio was putting forward a plan to have outdoor classrooms in New York, and I'm just like, that's New York. They're going to do it. In San Diego, we have good weather days, 261 days out of the year. We can't do that here for some reason. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I think folks are going to be in for a world of hurt when school starts. And it's unfortunate, it doesn't make any sense. We can keep daycares open, but we can't do schools. The amount of I think pushback parents are going to be giving in that first week, and to have the district have a set of standards that are above the counties even before they even consider reopening. I just, for folks, I'm sure there's some folks on this call who have the means to either send their kids to private school or do pods or whatever else. But, for me, I'm looking out for people in my district who, are blue collar. Both parents work. They don't have the ability to teach and monitor their kids from the class or from, their online classes from home, that means reduced hours, reduced income. It doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense. And it's unfortunate that, the school district has taken this position that we're going to just do this and make sure the kids' parents figure it out. I don't know. It's mind-boggling to me. And I'm fortunate that my kids aren't school aged yet and our daycare is open, but I'm dumbfounded by it all. I really am.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed by the snarky comment back to your announcement of the plan, right? From
Stay
one
in
of
my
your
lane.
school board members. Any other reactions from your community on it? I got to believe that
We've gotten positive feedback. I mean, and people don't like everything in there, and that's fine. And we outlined a bunch of ideas that we by no means said it had to be this or that. And we're not trying to force, if you don't feel comfortable sending your kids to school and you can do the online learning thing, do it. Like, we're not telling you to have to open it, but some folks don't have that luxury, and that's what we're trying to account for. But we've got nothing but positive feedback. Unfortunately, the district took a different approach. And when school starts, I think next week or for them, and they're going to continue online, there's really no plan to open schools. So now that we're, off the watch list, we'll see what happens for the next 2 weeks. But even then, they've said that they're not going to move forward with in-school learning for the district until the panel they have from UCSD set a lot of additional indicators and benchmarks to hit first. And I think parents are getting to a point where they're seeing this, they're going to be starting asking a lot of questions. And for their standpoint, if parents are pulling their kids out of the district, that would have a worse impact because that removes funding for them from the state. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
We appreciate you fighting on that for a lot of working families out there. So speaking of armchair quarterbacking, what do you think about community planning group reform and increased accountability for those groups that have a lot of impact on our members?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I think that there needs to be a set of standards so that there aren't these, rogue groups out there. I think I've been pretty fortunate, at least, like Mira Mesa and Corona Mesa have been great planning groups for us, even PQ with some of the projects that have gone through. I think there was a discussion at some point that from some of the planning group members and throughout the city that, our voice should be the sole voice and what we say should go. And I said, absolutely not. I'm elected for a reason and I get a lot more votes than you do. If you want to make those decisions, you run for office. So by no means do I want the planning group's authority to be the end all be all. I appreciate their voice, but for me, I don't like the process of holding projects up because of their review. So I'm against that, but I think there need to be a set of standards placed on them. I don't mind them. I'm okay with having them, but to a point where, whether it's from discretionary projects or wherever else, having to delay projects is an issue. And I'm the one, again, in the mindset that I appreciate their input, but if I disagree with you, I'm going to say so, and I'm going to disagree with you on their point. And I've done so in the past, but I know others look for them as a means for political cover, and I'm not going to vote against them or whatever else. And that's where I think you run into problems from a city standpoint. And that comes down to even district elections. I mean, we can have a philosophical debate about district elections and whether that's a good thing or not. And I think this is the same mindset.
Yeah, the parochialism really hurts, I think, more than helps in a lot of ways. So something that we really love, which is higher fees and more bureaucracy. Todd really likes that. That's his favorite thing. Just if you can just make sure and hit the brakes harder and slow down permitting more and increase the fees on top of it, he would be so excited. The alcohol industry has done well based upon the way it's going right now. But a couple of thoughts on that. So we talked about complete communities before. There's another component to it, dealing with vehicle miles traveled and how the state has now issued, obviously dictates to the local jurisdictions that they have to go from LOS to VMT. Part of the controversy, I know you're aware of this with the Complete Communities Plan, is what, if you're in a zone 4, which, it happens to be a lot of your district, a lot of Mark Kersey's district, you get hit with some really onerous VMT fees in addition to your other diff payments. And so people are looking at that and, and it's many millions of dollars. It's not like some small insignificant impact. what are your thoughts about how to fix that, deal with that when it comes to council, so that we can get, potentially complete communities passed, because there's a lot of good in it, but not have things like that that's just really going to stifle development in job-rich areas like your district and Mark Kersey's district?
Well, I think it comes down to educating the council on some of the pro formas of what exists with this. I mean, we've come back to you all so many times and asked for increased fees to do this, whether it's the linkage fee or in lieu or whatever. I mean, we've asked for so much from the communities. At some point in time, there is a cap on what's doable. So I think it's just educating the council on that. My biggest issue on the VMT, aside from the fee, it's just the rationale behind it, is that we're going to take the revenue from this fee and invest it into communities that are easier to do these type of projects. And then we're stuck, and myself or Councilmember Kersey, with this chicken or egg argument from members of our community about development in these areas. We saw in Rancho Penasquitos with Merge 56, the Sistera project. Like, you're introducing these new development projects with us, but we have no transit. And we can't do these projects until we have transit. Well, we as a city are now essentially saying to these communities, we're never going to invest in transit. It's never going to happen. And so that doesn't make any sense from my standpoint. If that's our overall goal, is to introduce alternative transportation methods in various communities, not just the easy ones of downtown or Bankers Hill or North Park or Little Italy or whatever else, you're going to have to start showing something in these other communities. Otherwise, you all who want to do projects in these communities are going to be just met with this brute force of people who say no because we don't have this thing. And that's where I haven't got a good answer from the city about that. And I've told this to them, and I've raised this in public hearings about this issue. Like, how do you get around this essentially statement that you're making, is that you're never going to invest in alternative transportation in these communities ever? It's never going to happen. So I fundamentally don't get it, and I haven't got to get a response to that point.
So thank you for that. How about some quick hitters before we end our call here? What's your next career move?
I get a real job. I'm starting to get that question a lot more. I don't know yet. I got 2 years. I'm probably going to take next year to figure out, what area I want to be in. I'll still be involved in government or politics to some level, whether it's, a full-time career or I get to do on the side or whatever else. I haven't made that decision yet. So I'll probably take next year to figure that out. And then 22, that my last year to figure out, okay, what's the vehicle for that? Where do I work? What do I do? So I don't know yet. We'll find out. But my wife tells me I got to find a real job. I will not be running for office for anything. Let's put it that way.
So you don't feel like there's an opportunity statewide to maybe get somebody elected to statewide office that's got some balance and reason in their head?
No, thanks.
So how do you think of, speaking of that, how do you think our statewide officials are doing?
Next question, please.
Well, let me maybe wrap with this in terms of the questions, and I can turn it over to Todd. I can see him leaning forward in his white, sterile background there. So what, for NAOP, you've obviously been a great friend, and your door has always been open to us and our members on our various issues. What can we do better or to do to help you as we push forward for your last 2 years to make it successful?
Hopefully the new council, 5 new members is a lot. And they all have varying degrees of background and understanding of different issues. And, if you've never been in the business world, like it's hard to grasp these things, right? And understand the complex nature of how you all run a business and how, this works and the economy works. I've said it before, I think every elected official should go through an Econ 101 class at least. Econ 102 after that, just to understand finance, understand how this works. But it becomes education. And I think you guys will have a huge lift to educate those 5 new members on what your issues are, how the decisions at council impact you, impact, the property owners, impact the tenants, impact the employees, and how that all comes down to that resident who becomes a voter in their district. It takes a lot, and you have to have someone who's also willing to learn and understand. And that's, where I think I come in, and what I try to introduce, and when I talk to new members on the council, is let them know that you're not going to know everything. You're going to have to rely on folks, and there are different points of view, and it's okay to listen to folks who you may not necessarily have a philosophical agreement with or agree with all the time, just to hear their point of view and on how this works, because it's not black or white. There are elements of gray in this, and it's better to have that wealth of knowledge and make an informed decision than to just rely on one source to make that decision. And unfortunately, that happens more than it should.
So one last quick thing, and then Todd, I'll turn it back over to you. You started out with the whole Midway Height Initiative thing. Maybe we can close out there. If people did want to help the campaign, the committee that you and Dr. Jen are co-chairing, what can they do? Is there a link, or is there somebody I can forward them to?
So the website is midway2020.com, midway2020.com. And if folks have more questions and they want to talk to me offline, go through Craig. I'm more than happy to have a conversation and answer any questions that you may have where we stand as a campaign. The way I like to run things, and Craig knows this, and I know a lot of members know this, I'm very transparent. I'm very open. If you're a supporter of this campaign, I want you to be involved in this campaign, let you know where we stand, what their messaging is, what the polling looks like, all that stuff. We want to be open and talk to our supporters about those issues. That way you feel invested in this as well too. Everyone agrees this is a no-brainer, but because that sometimes it's very easy to overshadow the campaign. It's going to be a campaign. We have opponents. We're going to have to run a campaign. We're going to have to get our message out to voters, and we can't do that without all of your support. And my promise to you is, if you are a supporter of this, is that you'll be engaged and involved, and I'll give you my cell. You can call me anytime, and we have a conversation about what's happening between now and November 3rd.
All right, Todd, back to you.
Yeah, lots of good things happening. Appreciate, obviously, sincerely appreciate your leadership on the council during your tenure. I think moving forward, as you noted, I think, and you're already doing this, I think partnering with business-friendly Dems, or Dems who understand the nuances of business, is really, that's our only salvation. I think that there's been some good examples on the council, whether that's Jen partnering with you in the Midway, or Councilmember Moreno, I think on the inclusionary housing issues. I think when we have an opportunity to get in front of these people and explain to them the significant impacts to the economy and jobs and commercial real estate, the small businesses, everything, the cumulative impacts of their decisions are not insignificant. So I think we're going to rely more on you into the future. I think educating these folks is going to be important. I think there's a lot of common ground. I think when we get down to the brass tacks of the issue and how it affects the character and culture of our communities, I think there's common ground there if we can explain to them. So we're going to rely on you, I think, as we move forward. And we're here to support as a trade organization. And but thank you for all you're doing, and thanks for taking the time today to speak to our members.
Absolutely, and happy to do that. And thank you again for having me. And my door is always open. So any issues or thoughts or concerns, feel free to reach out, and look forward to partnering with you for the next couple of years.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Have a great day, everyone.